Thank you for joining us for another live. I'm Sadell, Chantel's daughter, and today we're going to be talking about resolving conflict in relationships. And I think, conflict is obviously something that everyone in relationships goes through. And there is this idea that a lot of people have that you should be avoiding conflict at all risk, at all cost. And if you're, going through conflict, it means the relationship's doomed. And of course, we want to be avoiding conflict wherever possible. However, sometimes I think that those moments of conflict really need to happen, and they serve a greater purpose of helping both of us, learn more about each other and ourselves. And when we move through them in a way that is healthy and led from the heart, they can really help us to grow and expand the relationship. So, Mum, I'd love if you could start with maybe sharing some of the important lessons that you've learned about conflict resolution in your own relationships.
Thanks, sweetheart. So the first thing is that I'm wondering who can relate to what I've experienced a lot, which is I learned this new technique, this communication technique. I learned how to say something. I learned all the good things. And then once conflict arises or emotions escalate, it all goes out the window and I slam the door.
Cut out for a sec, but you came back.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm learning all of these techniques. I'm learning communication practices. And then when push comes to shove, I'm slamming that door again. I'm raising my voice. I'm telling him what he does wrong when I should be telling him what I need, all of that. And I've been learning communication techniques for a long time. And what I've realized is that the key to being able to apply them is to take the focus off the charge of the moment, off the other person, bring all of my attention to my breath, to my own being, and pause. Because what's actually happening in a highly escalated situation or when emotions are very charged is that our amygdala is firing and we're in this fight or flight response where we desperately need to get away and slam that door and get out of there as quickly as possible, or our fight response is really activated and we want it to battle. So once we're in that, it's really, really hard to keep communicating without perpetuating that fight or flight response. But if we stop and just breathe for like a minimum of 90 seconds, then the amygdala starts to calm down. Our prefrontal cortex is much more where we're sitting, and we can calmly communicate and actually access those communication techniques that we know, but we can't possibly access when we're in that fight or flight response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I definitely have experienced the same. And Mum was telling me a couple of weeks ago when I was explaining an argument with Rem to her, and she was just like, "You just need to stop and you need to breathe," and it makes such a difference because I of course learn a lot from you about communication techniques, and we're very fiery, and when you're in that state, it's like, oh, I just want to, yeah.
And what we really need is to CTFD, I say to clients, like calm the fuck down. No one's ever going to communicate well. Like one of the communication techniques that I teach and that other people teach is to create an I feel, I need statement. So it's like, I feel with the emotion, I need, and whatever it is to support you. And it sounds simple, right? I feel sad. I need quality time with you. But I've been able to apply that technique while I'm in a fight or flight response, and it really doesn't help matters. It's like, I'm feeling angry. I need you to da 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 da. And like, or you're coming from the flight response of like, I feel frustrated. I just need space, and we're either that turning away or fighting is never going to work, even with the best communication strategy in the world. So we've got to calm down first. And sometimes if emotions are really escalating, we need to take ourselves away and actually express and release some of that charge, because it's just too strong for us to be able to breathe into our center. So when I'm super duper angry or like feeling so betrayed, so rejected, and I'm in the vortex of that, I'm like, the world is coming to an end, we need to break up, or I fucking hate you and I want to destroy you, I need to actually take a bit of space, punch some pillows, have a big cry, shake, do some hand screams, whatever I need to do to discharge the energy. And then I can breathe into center and calm down. But I have to expel that energy first. And I find that to be true with a lot of people. It's kind of like we've compounded so many emotions in our system from keeping quiet, or from not expressing the vulnerability, that it's not even just the moment that we're of our deeper needs.
Yeah. And so for someone that is listening to this and maybe they have a partner who is getting really angry, maybe they want them to try and do this pause, and in the moment the partner is just not wanting to have anything to do with what they're saying, what do you think would be a good way of moving through that situation?
That's a great question. It's to focus on your own experience and not theirs, and ask for what you need. So I'm feeling really overwhelmed, or I'm feeling sad, whatever you're feeling in that moment, I need some space until the communication can be calm and loving. And then sometimes that can just escalate the other person even more. And that's where it's not a request, it's a boundary. It's like, I'm not talking right now. And there's been times where myself or my partner have actually needed to drive off into another room or hanging up the phone. But it's really respecting yourself enough that if you can feel that the other person is just, there's no way that they can speak calmly or anywhere near lovingly, that you take that space. Sometimes the other thing to keep in mind is that if you allow the other person to just let off some steam and empty their well, the jewels do come out at the end. So it depends on how strong you can be. Like sometimes if Matisse or I, we're still in story, we're going off a bit. If the other just listens and doesn't say anything, just listens, then you kind of, as you're sharing and listening to yourself, you realize that you're going on and on. So it's like, oh, you did this and you did that and I'm feeling this. And if the other person is defending themselves or explaining to just get more and more escalated. But if Matisse is just listening, eventually I'll start crying and get to the real thing. Or I'll be like, oh, I know that I'm really in story right now, and probably like this is shaming you a bit, or whatever I'm noticing as I'm given space with his deep listening. And then I can say what I'm really trying to say is, I'm feeling sad and I just need time with you one-on-one without anything else, where all of the attention is on me and we do something really romantic together. So even though I might have spent 5 minutes going, even though I've asked for romance, you're still not doing that, and we've had no quality time for the last 2 weeks, and you're prioritizing everything else. Now he could cut in and say, hey, you're shaming me, or we did have time. We just had time last week. But you know what it's like when you're in an emotional state, you're just kind of magnifying all of the things that are support the story you're running. So sometimes, not if it's really hectic, but sometimes if you can manage it, just listening to your partner, letting them empty the well, and waiting for the jewels is actually what's needed in that situation. And we're human. We're all going to fly off the handle sometimes. We're never going to communicate perfectly. So there's also compassion and patience where it's like, I'm going to take one for the team. I'm just going to hold divine masculine presence and listening and create a safe space for this person to share everything fully. And then sometimes they'll get to the jewel themselves, or sometimes the listener can actually say, I'm not open to anything else right now other than like what you're actually needing here. I want to hear, what can I do right now? You.
Yeah, really bringing it back into the present is such a big thing there, because it's so easy to get caught up in the stories. And when I've been having conversations with Rem, we get stuck up in the story and I want to prove my point. And if I just think about, is this actually in this moment, or is it the past or the future? And yeah, for sure. And for people that maybe struggle with expressing their vulnerability because they see it as weak, or giving their power away, what would you suggest to maybe help rewire that, or to get them more comfortable with expressing vulnerability?
So you can't express vulnerability unless you're actually able to be very present with yourself and curious about the depth of what's going on. And when you're able to have that presence and curiosity, you're naturally not going to see it as a weakness. You're going to feel it as a strength, because you know what you've had to do to get beneath the layers of ego. Vulnerability can be a mental concept of like, get vulnerable and ask for what you need. And our ego and our pride is never going to want to do that. Like when you're upset and someone's pissing you off, or you're feeling rejected and really sad, the last thing you're going to want to do in a lot of situations is say, hey, I'm feeling really sad. Could you please reassure me that you love me? Right? It is going to feel weak if you're just doing it on the surface level. But if you're actually engaging with an emotional process where you are pausing, you are breathing, and you're getting curious about what's happening then deeper in your head, what's happened in the past, then yeah, you'll feel that strength. So to give you an example, so tell me about a situation with you and Rem where maybe.
Oh, sorry, your audio is cutting out a little bit. What did you
Vulnerability
say?
could be seen as a weakness. Getting what you need could be seen, and being vulnerable could be seen as a weakness.
Like if we're having an argument and he's getting a bit stuck in the story, and for instance, maybe I just want to ask him for a hug, but I am feeling like if I do that, I'm putting myself on the line as well, and I'm scared, for what he's going to think, if he's going to reject me, and also just to let my walls down and risk that rejection. That's kind of something that comes up.
That's perfect. It's a great example, and it's a really great question. So if you keep the communication here at a mental level, right, and you're like, oh, I want to ask for a hug, but it feels scary, and what if that's not what he wants? Or right, you're feeling that, and you're like, what I actually really need right now is a hug. And you acknowledge that within yourself as valid. You're naturally going to put your hands on your body, right? Because you're needing some touch to calm down. So what I always say to people is try to give yourself what you need first, so that their response isn't the be all and end all of your state, right? But we always want to be in a position when we make requests in relationship that we're not attached to the outcome of them saying yes to whatever our request is. And the only way we can be not attached to the outcome is if we're actually capable of self-sourcing. So in that situation, what I would do now at 47, that's very different to what I would do at 21, is like, okay, so Matisse is in the story. I'm upset about that.
Hey, Mum.
And instead of the focus on him, I'm getting curious about what's alive in me.
I don't know if it's doing it for other people, but it's cutting out.
Tease. Hang on, I'll just see if there's... Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Then it just kind of goes quiet for like 5-10 seconds sometimes.
I think it's less an audio issue and maybe more a Wi-Fi issue.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So the key is that when you have a request to your partner as to what you need from that vulnerable state, but you're feeling afraid of rejection, make it about you and not them, and support yourself in a level of non-attachment to how they're going to respond by knowing that you can self-source whatever that is. And that goes for all requests in relationship. If you're like pinning all your hopes on their answer, then it's going to be even harder to be vulnerable, and you are going to be powerless because their answer has power over you. But if in that moment you're feeling like, oh, I really need, what do I really need? And you're getting presence and touch, and maybe you bring it to yourself before you ask them. And you're in that energy and you say to them, you know, I just feel really sad and all I need right now is silence and to be held. If he says no, you're not going to be devastated if you're already holding yourself and you know you can hold yourself. Obviously, it's always going to feel better if he can hold you as well. So then what it looks like, instead of it being like, I feel sad, can you hug me? And you're pinning your hopes on his answer. It's like you're taking a moment, you're pausing. He might still be in the story and you're just like, well, getting present. What do I need right now? Oh, I need some holding. I'm feeling unsafe. And you breathe with that. He's going to feel you before you've even said something. And he's going to feel your vulnerability. And that's what it's always about for men. If they can feel, or for both of us, really, if we can feel the other person, we're going to have a lot more compassion, right? Because we're feeling them. Then in our bodies, that's a very different situation. And I don't know many people, if they're feeling someone and they're like this, and they're like, I'm just feeling really sad and I need to be held, that's going to dissolve most people's defenses, right? And if it doesn't, and the other person's just so upset, they can say like, I can't hug you right now, I'm too angry or whatever. And then just say, okay, well, I need some time to just be with myself and hold myself. And then that's empowering rather than giving power over.
Yeah, great. Fabulous answer.
Thanks.
So do you think that, you know, obviously masculine and feminine have a lot of differences. Do you think that in conflict resolution, understanding the way that masculine and feminine might approach it is helpful to understand, and that there is like quite a significant difference in the way that a man approaches conflict versus a woman?
I do, and in our healthy feminine and our healthy masculine, it's like we both people need both. We need the healthy feminine to be able to actually connect with expressing how we feel and what we need, right? Because at the essence, that's what's so important. We ask for what we do want instead of focusing on what we don't want. Instead of shaming and blaming and attacking someone, we're able to connect with the I and share what it is that we're feeling and needing. But without the healthy masculine that can pause be present and curious rather than in that bullying mode, mental mode of charging and proving ourselves right, then we're not even going to be able to access the feminine expression. So there's always something that I teach women, which is actually to be in your healthy feminine is dependent upon how healthy your masculine is, because without that silent container that's able to need for the aliveness and expression of that, it's just expression. And then it's like, you know, all of the compounded experiences in our life that have created a sense of angst all come out and blow up, or create a shutdown and a flight response. Does that answer? And it's like, yes, men and women are going to be different in terms of a man who's polarized in his masculine is always going to be more interested in the logic and the reasoning of the situation rather than asking for what he needs. Like, women find it hard enough to ask for what we need, but it's really, you know, society doesn't encourage men to be in touch with their feelings and what they need. Society and collective consciousness encourages men to be strong, to be the providers, to be the ones who are holding that, to be strong, the providers, the tough, like society encourages men to be vulnerable. So the difference between men and women is that often men find it a lot more difficult to connect with the feeling state and what they need. And women find it a lot more difficult to be logical and just take a step back and go, you know, can I see this from a bird's eye view rather than being so caught up in the emotion of it? So women really need that pause and the oversee rather than getting so stuck in like dramatizing whatever they're experiencing. You know, our emotional bodies can escalate so quickly. And the man, rather than like looking at his watch going, all right, like, you've been upset for a while now, can we get to fixing this? They need to just be able to be in the space of in their vulnerability. That's a man's edge is to ask for what they need. A woman's edge is to just take a step back and not be so in the emotion of it all.
Yeah. And then, you know, what you're saying, often women can end up not oversharing, but getting stuck, and then the man can feel really criticized and like everything they're doing is wrong, and they can just pour everything out. And so you're saying to take that pause and just take a minute. And then when you do share, is there any tips for if you are wanting to share vulnerably and share your truth, but also to not be, you know, really putting the man down and criticizing him and making him feel like a failure through your sharing?
So first of all, think of it like PC, present and curious. They're the two things that both people need. Present and curious with what's happening within them, and present and curious with what's understanding ourselves and our partner from the foundation of love, rather than trying to prove ourselves right, which is the pattern that most of us go into. So there's a few things there, right? It's like the first thing is to really ask yourself the right questions. How do I feel and what do I need? That's like the best thing to focus on, and keep it really simple. And you're not bringing anything else up. So there's not the shaming, there's not the blaming. It's just like, I feel angry. I need a pause right now. I feel sad. I need us to just have time together tonight, right? Something very actionable.
Yeah.
I feel exhausted. I need you to have the kids and some time for myself. Now, all of those things could look really messy. We could be like, I haven't had time on my own for so long. You've been off, I've been stuck with the kids, but do we really? And then for the listener, and this is also just in general life, can the listener be curious? Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing. What would be your perfect romantic night? Or yeah, thanks for sharing. And would it help you to have a day a week? Or where I have the kids, or what would you love to make this better in the long term? Like actually asking each other questions so that we can unveil what the other person desires, what the other person needs. And that doesn't mean that you satiate all of that. It doesn't mean that you live for your partner's needs if they're not in resonance with you. And, something else I often teach is how can you capitalize on the other person's best interests? And if you can't, then maybe you're incompatible. So, for instance, there's been different stages in my relationship with Matthias where I've asked him to step up more in making him a better man. Is that supporting his evolution and initiation that he's experiencing right now in life? And the answer's always been yes for him, because he's had a lot of freedom and adventure and going here, there, and everywhere and being a free spirit. And actually what he was focusing on when I was asking for this is being more stable, like coming into his own more as an anchor, as a man. So it was compatible with his individual desires. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we actually have a question here. Is it helpful to cite examples when someone asks, when did I do that? And of course, the example would be from the past, but then they'd say, it's not helpful to bring up stuff in the past. I mean, if they're asking, sure. And you just want to keep it as short and simple as possible. So, I mean, I feel like the question, when did I do that, wouldn't even come up if you're just, it's like, when did I do what? I feel frustrated. I need more help around the house. Maybe they'll say, when did I not help you around the house? My first answer to that would be, it doesn't really matter. I don't want to go into examples. You've helped lots of times. You haven't helped lots of times. In this present moment, I'm wanting more help. Can we just clean the house together now? Or tomorrow, can we set some time to clean the house? So you just want to redirect it as much as possible back to the present moment, because as soon as you go, well, all week you haven't helped me. So you've done it all week. You've completely ignored your responsibility to the house and left it to me. Oh, but I've been working all week or I had to help move house. And that's when you get all of these excuses, all of these defenses. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the reason was genuine. It doesn't matter if the reason was not genuine. It doesn't matter if they were a jerk or trying to be kind. Whatever the situation is, right here, right now, and say to men is, I want you to be free. I never want you to say yes to something for my sake. What I'm feeling right now is frustrated. What I'm needing is more help around the house. You don't have to say yes to that. All I want to know right now is there a willingness from you to do that? And if they say yes, then we move forward with that, right? If they say no, maybe you don't know if you can be with them if they're not going to help you around the house more. So there also needs to be a willingness when you make a request, that if it's a non-negotiable or if it feels really important to you, that you're willing to let go of the relationship. And that is so freeing. And then you're never giving someone power over you constantly. It's like, I'm at a point in my life where I genuinely, if my major needs aren't being met, I'm genuinely willing to let go of the relationship, because I can meet my own needs. So I'm better off on my own. but it is going to be better than no relationship because you don't have that strong relationship with yourself. So part of all of this is inner union and self-love and being present and curious and giving yourself everything you want from a partner so that you're not desperate for this relationship, right? And willing to put up with whatever's happening because it's going to be better than being on your own, because being on your own is shit. You're not really tuning in and creating love within you.
Yeah. And something I've had a couple times happen with Rem when we've been having a conversation and I ask him for something I need, and then he's a bit of a people pleaser. He wants to help as much as he can, and then he can end up overextending himself. And I've told him, you can say no, and he's like, I don't want to say no though. I want to make you happy. And is there anything that, a practice or something that people who have more of a tendency to overextend themselves and want to say yes and without honoring their own boundaries, is there something that they can do to help them, better get in touch with that and recognize that, they are also a priority in the situation?
I feel like the pause and getting present and curious is the key to all of this, right? So before he answers, he needs to pause. He needs to connect and just be like, is this actually possible? Can I capitalize on her best interests? Is this going to support me? So for him to pause and really feel into it is one of the things. The other thing is, like what I say to a man, if he says yes and then doesn't follow through, I'll say to him, hey, like when I make a request to you, it's actually so much worse for me if you say yes, and I'm waiting for that. But you're either doing it with resentment, and I can feel that, or you don't end up doing it. I would much prefer you to be honest, and then I know where I stand. It causes more misery when you say yes to something and then you can't actually follow through, or following through means that you're depleted, and then I get the resentment at the other end of that. Or, I can feel that you didn't actually want to, because trust is so important in a relationship, and we want to be able to trust our partner's yes and no.
Yeah, great. And another thing that I feel maybe would happen, and has definitely happened to me, is when you're in the middle of a conflict, is there a way that you can tell or help recognize when your response is based on old wounding from another situation and maybe another relationship, and how to release that and recognize when it's actually not your partner or whoever you're talking to that is causing so much inner turmoil? It's the previous wounding or trauma or whatever's going on that's stuck in your body that it's triggering and bringing up and making it a lot worse.
So trust your body's wisdom with the question, is this reminding me of something? Like, go in. Is this reminding me of something? Because this feels big. Allow some sound. Like, what is this reminding me of? And it'll come, right? Sometimes just through giving emotion, breath, sound, and movement, we actually feel the deeper resonance of what it's reminding us of. And just because it's reminding us of something from a past relationship, or maybe how our experience with our father, doesn't mean that it's also not happening here, because sometimes when it's reminding us of something, it's like, wake the fuck up, you've attracted the same thing again. So like, if your father was very absent and then you're feeling a lot of absence, it's like, what's this reminder, right? And you feel that anger. For me, I'm always angry first. For someone who's more sensitive and sadness is more the go-to, it'll be like, it'd be less angry. It'd be more like, I don't want this. I don't want this anymore, to just, keep waiting. I don't want to keep feeling rejected, rather than the fuck you version. And then it's like, okay, so what do I need here? And then there's an expression possible of like, I love you and I'm feeling sad and alone and lonely a lot. I need more of your presence. I need you here with me more. Or I want to move in together, whatever it is. And then it's about, again, being curious, not blaming the other if they can't give it to us. Like he might be, or she might be in a state of like exploring freedom, and the priority in their life then is the best thing for him. And he's been in a relationship for 8 years where he committed everything, or he's young and that's his genuine priority. So it's like, I don't want you to do this if you don't want to, but are our needs, you're curious, are our needs compatible right now? What I'm needing is to see you every day, or to see you like most days, or to move in with you, or whatever. How does that feel to you? And again, it's fueled by curiosity, and the foundation is love. Because I think the foundation of any friendship in a relationship is love. So you have to be friends with the person. And it's like, how can I understand your perspective better, rather than how can I prove my point? It's very different.
Yeah, really having that openness to their perspective. And I've definitely been like, how does he think this? And then if I put myself in his shoes, I'm like, okay, well, obviously he's not just inventing this completely out of nowhere. There's a reason that he's feeling this way, and really just being open to both the perspectives makes such a big difference. And as well for me, like you said, remembering the love that you have for each other, and just like taking a minute when you feel like just fuck you, just being like, I love this person so much, like all this just is so unnecessary.
And that also helps when you're listening to someone and they're going into a bit of story. It's like, if you can come from that curiosity and the foundation of love and presence, even though 95% of what they're saying might be gubblety book and just blah, 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 there's always a thread of truth in it. There's always something. And as you said, they're not feeling this for no reason. So there's that curiosity feeding it again, and curiosity as to, can this work? So many women know deep down, and even when a man makes clear, this is just sex for me, right? And yet she's kidding herself and thinking it'll turn into more, or wanting more and getting angry at him when he's been upfront about it. So sometimes silence with a truth revealing question like, do you actually want to be in this as a relationship, or do you just want to be lovers? And when he says, I just want to be lovers, instead of wanting that to change, being in that present moment and going, that's not what I want right now. But that takes a level of non-attachment and non-settling that you're only capable of if you've healed your self-worth wound and you know what you're worthy of. And healing the self-worth wound isn't easy. It means bringing a deep love to self, and that has many layers to it. So if you feel like your reference point of love from your parents, from your past relationships, has mainly been what doesn't fulfill your needs, you have a lot of unconscious patterns that keep attracting that into your life, and you need to work with someone who knows what they're doing one-on-one. So you can reach out to me, it's quite hard to work with me these days, but I can definitely see if it's possible and refer you to someone who can. It's just, you actually find yourself not having your needs met in relationships so much. And even when you are pausing and being curious, you keep coming across like, actually, this person I'm attracting people who can't meet my needs. Work one-on-one. So there's a question, mystical dance, what to do if partner won't listen and won't follow my needs, and they say you are egoistic? I mean, I just wouldn't be with someone like that. If your partner doesn't listen, doesn't care, I mean, sometimes women will say that to me, and then I say to them, but how are you asking? And the way that they're asking is full of expectation, full of demand, and it's like the other person is their lifeline, and no one wants to be anyone's lifeline. But sometimes they're actually present with themselves, they're doing the right things, they're saying, hey, I'm feeling sad, I need more quality time with you, or I need more loving kindness. The guy's an actual prick or not interested in giving you the love that you need. He's not going to say you're an egoist when you're being vulnerable and asking for what you need that way. So if he is responding like that, when you've been vulnerable and you're sharing from that foundation of love, don't be with him,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and if I can just say as well, something that you suggested that I do a couple weeks ago, Rem and I were going through quite an intense time, and you've been speaking about non-attachment and the importance of that, and I think for me, my attachment to it always being perfect and to us being together and staying together was causing so much more harm to the relationship, because something would happen, I'd be like, oh my god, my everything's going down, my life is ruined, I'm going to be broken, like I'm going to have nothing. And what you did, telling me to every day just sit with myself and meditate on non-attachment and just feel in myself, without everything, without him, without our property, without anything external to me, I'm still actually happy within myself. And as long as I have myself, I can have a beautiful life and fulfill all my needs. And none of that actually matters. And really realizing that took so much pressure and expectation of him and our relationship.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, meditation is key to non-attachment. Calling in our own divine masculine energy. And a good practice for everyone to do when you get off this live is to journal. What are all the things that I love about my partner? Or what do I love, and or depending if you're in relationship, what really attracts me about a man? So typically the things that really get me going is a man who's super present, mystical, calm, patient. Now, all of those traits have been at different stages in my life my weakest traits. I definitely have worked a lot on being over busy, my connection with 3D reality before my connection to spirit. So I started to focus on all of the things that attracted me. Okay, I'm going to set aside time every day to call those qualities in. So there's the meditating on non-attachment, and then there's also a more feminine way of doing it is open to receiving the qualities in your body that you yearn for. And you can do this at the time of conflict of what you're needing, like I was saying before, like giving yourself that hug and that safety, but you can do this in life in general. So what do I love about Matisse? And then I'm opening my base chakra. I'm inviting peace. I'm inviting sweetness. I'm inviting presence. I'm inviting connection to spirit. And what that feels like in my body is so beautiful. And then when I'm away from him and I might be missing him or being overly attached to the relationship, it really creates a turning point, and we can feel when our partner's not meeting our needs in those moments of conflict, or when we're away from our partner, can be filled with our own capacity to actually call in any quality in all of human existence, and to know that you are whole, you have the power to feel happy and whole within and have that inner union. And that's not to pretend that, for the women out there, you're a woman. You're wired towards relationship. To me, the best case scenario is always having that self-love, knowing that you are so happy with or without a man, but also knowing and feeling in your body that the ultimate happiness for a woman, the ultimate joy and expansion, I feel, is always felt when we're sharing that with someone who's compatible, because that's so beautiful and it's primal. We want the hunter-gatherer. We want the man there who can look after us and look after our children. So yeah, there's so many layers to this. I don't want to deviate too much, but you know, your call to action from this live, to put it to its simplest form, is PC, right? Pause, present, and curious. Pause and then bring in presence and curiosity, first in here and then with your partner. And what that pause requires is a minimum of 90 seconds of breathing. And that's just more coming from a scientific basis of that's how long it takes to calm down the amygdala, to turn the prefrontal cortex back on and being in a more calm state. Without that 90 seconds, you're fucked. Usually you're gonna run or you're gonna fight.
Great. And what you were saying then as well just reminded me of something else that has been really helpful, you know, with the what you want in your partner, feeling that in you, and also feeling the reflection that they are of you, and taking their beautiful qualities and recognizing that in yourself, but also taking what triggers you about them and recognizing that in yourself. And you know, you again were telling me to do this the other day, and I sat down and I just journaled for a bit about what pisses me off the most that Rem does, and it was all stuff that I do. And so, you know, really recognizing that, and then often when I then recognize that and can stop doing it, he then naturally stops doing it as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's amazing. And you've reminded me of another little technique or secret when conflict arises that I utilize, which is I think to myself what I wish Matisse was doing. So it might be, I wish he would fucking ask me a question and actually be curious about this instead of defending himself. I wish I could feel his heart more. I wish he would put his arm around me, whatever it is. And then I do the thing I wish for.
Sorry.
Instead of keeping the projection on him.
And then
think about what you want the other to do and do that yourself. So I wish he would touch me and bring some reassurance. Try doing that for them, because we can stay locked down just going like, oh, I wish they would come up to me. I wish this, I wish that. Why can't they do this? Or like, I wish they would speak loving and not aggressive. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's your behavior? Take it back and then replace it with I can. So like, I wish Matisse would be more gentle. I could be being gentler. I was speaking with more love. I could be speaking with more love. Because it's really easy to point the finger and go, you're shaming me, you're speaking aggressively, you're doing this, you're doing that. There's one finger pointing that way, and there's 3 fingers pointing this way. So take it back to yourself. Take off the projection. You're doing this. Okay. I'm doing that too, actually, on them.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And even not in, you know, immediate conflict, like for instance, if I notice when I'm with Rem and his daughter Cora, maybe I feel like he is giving me a little bit less attention, and then I see myself pulling back and not wanting to give him attention. And then in those moments, you know, if I'm not feeling like he's giving me enough attention and love, you know, that I want, then I go to him and I give him that. And then instead of us both, you know, when I then close, then he closes off more, and then it actually becomes a fight. Instead of that, then I'm opening to him, going into him, and then the whole problem is solved. You know, he feels my love, and then often he gives me more attention naturally.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what all of this requires, what we're speaking to, is a dissolution of the ego. It's like, instead of choosing ego and righteousness and closing down, what we're actually choosing is is to lean in, to open, to let go of our pride. And actually, what would love do now? Is the point of a lot of this, rather than what would fear do, or how can I prove myself right, or how can I maintain my false sense of power right now. Not that we're literally asking ourselves those questions, but we close down and we want to buckle up and keep our ego intact.
It's like, oh, well, fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go out with my friends. You're not giving me any attention. Like, okay, how can I invite him to give me more attention?
Yeah. So we have a few questions. What do you do as the male in the relationship when your wife is closed emotionally and not willing to, and then it's cut off? Oh, sorry, you cut out.
Okay, so the best question you can ask a woman is, sweetheart, I can feel that you're upset. Can you make it easier for me and just tell me really simply, like in one word, what you're feeling? And then just in one sentence, without telling me what I'm doing wrong, just tell me what you need. Just like take a minute to feel into that. That's going to be the best thing that you can do to de-escalate the situation and support her to actually share something. And, trust is really important here, because a lot of women, we're not trusting ourselves in our expression. We're not able to bring that presence and curiosity to ourselves. But if you ask this question and then you respond without defense, she's going to be able to trust herself and trust you a lot more. It's like if she says to you, hey, I feel what I'm actually feeling is sad. And what I'm needing is, for you to take me on a date, surprise me. If you're not then going, well, I do take you on dates, or how do I have time to take you on a date? She's going to shut down, and it's going to be hard for her to trust herself and you to express. And that's going to be met with love. So the best you can do once she does say how she feels and what she needs is not defend yourself, not explain, but just answer honestly if you can meet that need.
Yeah, and that goes for both men and women, of course. It makes such a big difference when you're just meeting their need with openness instead of defensiveness.
And something that Matisse will say to me that's really helpful is like, can you speak to me with love? And that holds me accountable. And then I'm like, I'm not really speaking with love right now. And because he's being vulnerable, it's like, I can feel that he's sad. I can feel that I'm hurting him. So it's like, can you speak to me with love, looking me in the eyes? I can feel the depth of his emotion. I'm like, and speak with love.
Yeah. Someone said, navigating a breakup when there is a very deep and loving connection on a soul level energetically, but separation on the physical.
Be okay with how painful that is. That's a very painful situation, and you just need to accept that there's going to be a grieving process. I've been in that position where the love is still there. It's not a question of not loving. It's a question of maybe incompatibility or impossibility. There was a time when it wasn't possible for Aaron and I to be together because we were separated geographically through COVID. So if you look at the basic grieving process, right? There's anger, there's shock, there's denial, there's sadness, there's even depression sometimes, and negotiation, and how can we make this work? And then eventually hiccups. They're trying to escape their pain. Don't escape the pain. It's fucking hard when you're that close to someone, when you've given everything, your heart, your body, your soul, there's going to be a period of mourning. Allow that period of mourning.
The last question, how to deal with feeling rejected by my partner or when my desire for intimacy is not met.
Say it again.
How to deal with feeling rejected by my partner when my desire for intimacy is not met.
Don't deal with it, just feel it. You know, it's hard when your desire for intimacy is not met. It's like, feel that, feel the sadness in that. And if it's happening a lot, then maybe you're incompatible. Like, every man and woman needs to feel desired from their partner. And it might just be a one-off, right? Or it might be someone who's not able to meet you there. Let the relationship go and be with someone who can meet that if it's a very consistent hub.
Yeah. Okay, well, if there's not anything else that you feel you want to add, then that's probably good.
Yeah, just remember the like 3 main simple concepts here. 1, pause, breathe for 90 seconds so you can calm the fuck down, right? 2, stick to statements in the I feel, I need. 3, come from a foundation of love, presence, and curiosity rather than defensiveness, explaining, pride, ego.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. We will be live again next Tuesday at the same time. I think are we doing Breaking the Silence to awaken feminine arousal?
Yeah, how to express what you're really desiring to a man instead of just laying there disinterested and saying you've got a headache or you're too tired. But really, you don't want to open because you're not enjoying how it is. And yeah, there's been a lot in history of suppressing our voice. So we're going to be unlocking some of the keys to feeling safe in our expression. And if you need, you know, like with the communication piece that we've been talking about today, it is deep, it is difficult. We have an online course, Relationship Tantra, that supports it hugely. So Sadell, if you can put a link to that and a 50% off code so that you can really dive into it. We also have a free offering. Pop that in the links as well, Sadell.
Oh, you cut out
Tantra
again.
The Tantra 101 8-day journey that really supports you with your boundaries, with expressing your yes, expressing your no, and navigating the pause. So yeah, if you can put both those links for people. And then if you want to go really deep, then work with me or someone I've trained. And yeah, you can just put in the comments. Yeah.
I'll put the details in the caption. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Nice to talk to you, darling. Great question.
All right. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next week.